Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's BAInsights session. Today, we're talking about something that's very important for business analysts. It's prioritization approach, if I can even say it. I've got three excellent guests to come and join us as well to talk to us about this topic. Before we get into the questions, if there's anyone that hasn't subscribed, please do so. It's always useful to be reminded of these videos so you can watch them when they pop up. Hit the notification bell as well, and it'll definitely not miss the videos when they're released. One other thing, if I can, if there's any comments that you've got to make, any insights you want to share yourselves, feel free to use the comments. It's always good to hear what you've got to say. All right. But speaking of good to hear what people have to say, let's dive into some introductions. And I wonder, Shane, can we start with you, please? Introduce yourself.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much for having me. Kia ora tātou. I am Shane Hastie, based out of a little town called Otaki, which is north of Wellington, New Zealand. Today, I happen to be in a hotel in Sydney, so that's the weird background behind me. Well, who am I? What am I? My day job is, they call me the global lead for a variety of subjects at Skills Development Group in New Zealand. I have contributed to a fair amount of work in the business analysis space. You can blame me, at least partially, for the fact that the Babok is 500 pages, not 200 pages. Sorry, folks. I am co-author of a number of books. The latest one is The Rock Crusher, a flow-based model for backlog management, which really does lead deeply into the importance of prioritization. At a personal level, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, and a husband. I have 5 children, 7 grandchildren, and I have coffee mugs and various others that have my favorite people call me Grandpa. That's me.
Perfect. Thank you, Shane. It sounds like you probably use a lot of your BA skills as well to just manage all of the different relationships you've got within your family. But thank you, excellent stuff. And yeah, obviously, anybody that to look you up and see those books that you mentioned. Sneha, actually, Sneha, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Morning, John. Morning, Shane. Morning, Ashwani. And morning to all the listeners. My name is pronounced as Sneha. I'm currently based in London, United Kingdom. Professionally, I'm working as a business analyst at Navro. It's a payments startup, and the aim is to build a simple and secure solution for mid-sized and larger firms to process their pensions and other payroll payments as efficiently and cheaply as possible. Personally, I am a mom, happy wife, and we three of us, we live in London, United Kingdom. And personally, I love doing DIY tasks. That's me. And I post my professional thoughts under the hashtag 3 things to know on LinkedIn often. Thanks, John.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks for inviting me.
We'll maybe save it for another day to ask you about some DIY tips, but that might be one for another day. That's brilliant. Okay, and then last but not least, that's Ashwani.
Hey, hi, John. Thanks for inviting to this platform, and thanks for all the panelists who are attending today. I am Ashwani Pusakar, based out of Mumbai, India, and I have a total of 12 years of experience. Currently, I'm working with Citi India as AVP Strategic Projects. Majority of my career has been into business analysis. Just for like past couple of years, it is not pure business analysis, but once you have been into that role, it keeps on carrying on. Like whichever role you take, you would bring your that hat and try to make all this structure according to it. From the work experience part, I have been with public sector companies in India, and then moved into IT consulting sector. And like academically, like I have been I've done MBA finance and mechanical engineering. So most of the thing that you would see brings me to a generalist platform, like where I could dabble like across whatever comes into like my side. So that's all I am.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ashwani. And yeah, you make a few very interesting points about the fact that you never leave the BA mindset and skill set either. And I think on the flip side as well, which is relevant to this topic, when it comes to prioritization, it's not something that just BAs do as well. So if there's anyone watching this and you're not a business analyst, don't turn off now, because all the things we're going to talk about are as relevant to you as they are BAs as well. All right. Well, let's start and prove that with the first question. I'll put this to Shane first. In terms of what are the most common scenarios in which business analysts need to prioritize, Shane?
Well, what's the right answer here is it depends. I have to get that in first. We were all going to say that at least once. But one of the things that depends on it's what is your role as a business analysis professional? Are you working at the organizational strategy level? Are you working across multiple streams of work? Or are you working within a single initiative? And at each level there, you should be doing constant and deliberate prioritization. And one of the hardest things is choosing what we discard, what we don't do. So you said I'm allowed to mention the book. So the latest book, The Rock Crusher, written by myself, Steve Adolph, and Ryland Layton, published with the IIBA. The model that we have is, I don't want to say it's unique by any means. I'll try and share my screen if I can. Get back to the right window here, share screen. So I've got that right. You can see the picture of a rock crusher. And if there's one single thing that I think Steve, Ryland, and myself have brought to the conversation, it's that thing on the left, the waste gate. Organizations are really good at starting work. They're terrible at stopping bad work. And the waste gate is something that what we're suggesting is at every level of at every time horizon that you're working in, at every level of granularity, there will be a whole lot of things that somebody has put into your rock crusher, into your backlog as this is a good idea. And when we get close to actually needing to implement it, maybe it's not such a good idea. And having the courage, the organizational authority, to turn around and say, yeah, wonderful. And when that idea was put forward, we might have needed it. The world has changed. The reality is, and I'm not sure where this statistic comes from, so I treat it with a little bit of a grain of salt, but I think it was an IBM study that said about 75% of the requirements for any software product change in a 12-month period. Well, that means we have to be constantly adapting, responding, changing what we're doing, and being comfortable to throw stuff out through the waste gate. So, bit of a lengthy explanation, but there's the shameless plug for the book as well. So, thank you.
Not at all, Shane. And it's important to recognise that things, as you have, that not all ideas will stay in the backlog forever. Some of them are rightly discarded for various reasons. So I think it's a very important point.
Should be.
And to show,
I worked in one organisation where they had 2,000 items in the backlog, and more than half had been there for more than 5 years. They were never going to be delivered, but nobody was allowed to get rid of them.
That sounds like a perfect example of a company to put their ideas through their rock crusher, as you showed on the go. Sneha, would you mind sharing your view as well on the common scenarios that you've encountered business analysts using for prioritization?
Sure, John. One of the most common scenarios that I have came across in my professional life is shift in the market. There are conditions due to which happen due to regulations change, right? You cannot much avoid those and do disrupt your upcoming sprints or the current sprints. There One of the second scenarios where I have seen sprint planning or prioritization is the need of the hours is incidents or a high amount of bugs. Be whatever be the case in the past, like inefficient testing processes or inefficient requirements, wherever the gap would be, I think a lot of load comes around when the bug count or the incident count is high and all the stakeholders starts panicking, and that's where prioritization really becomes the need of the hour, because you can't solve all and yet you have an obligation or the need to capture the market or things like that, to push the product out. So in such scenarios, prioritization becomes really the need of the.
Yeah, it's important about the points you're making there as well, because it shows, it recognises that BA shouldn't be expected just to create more capacity. They have to be able to adapt to what's being asked of them, whether it's focus on requirements or defect fixes that need analysing or anything else that crops up, reg examples, as you also mentioned as well. And if they don't have that view of what's most important, then actually they could well focus some of that capacity on the wrong things or less important things anyway. So yeah, excellent points. Thank you. And Ashwani, your view as well on that question, please.
So I think there would be a certain amount of repetition. So just please forgive me from that perspective. But how I would like to break it up from my experiences, the roles, if you are into some, say, expanding team, right, where you joined and team is expanding. So majority in such cases, it would be because there are new projects coming up. So if in those scenarios, most requirement would be like while building your MVPs, right? So you would be like seeing things from that perspective. While if your team is settled, then things like in
it's just frozen on the punchline now.
Yeah, whereby you would break it up, right? Like if it is like, sorry if I'm breaking or
sorry, yeah, you just broke up for a bit, but you're good now.
Okay. Okay, sure. So like in the expanding team, as I said, it is what goes into your MVP, that prioritization needs to be done. While for the second part, incident management or your change management, then you need to prioritize. And the common what remains among both, either be it new or the expanding projects, it would be this resource allocation, right? Where you need to always prioritize. So whether your team is expanding or it is settled, you need to prioritize your resource, like people, time, and all the like similar stuff.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
These were the two ways.
So I think across the answer you've given there, I mean, it covers really whether you're looking after a team or looking after your own, capacity, as it were. It's really important to prioritise to make sure that what we're focusing on and spending the majority of our time on are those things that are most valuable, most important, rather than the opposite, which is spending some of our valuable time on things that are really not that useful as well. And I think whilst the same could be applicable over a period of a project or an initiative, also it's very applicable day to day as well. We have to know, the things I'd add is sort of knowing, what meetings that you might get invited to day that are really important, which of them are actually contributing to the delivery and success of the project, rather than those that maybe detract from it as well. I know it's not always easy. I think so. That's probably covered all the answers, actually, all the points that I would have also made. So I won't go on and repeat them. So perhaps we'll move on to the next question from Sneha. I'd like to know really what prioritization techniques or frameworks that you might use or would recommend when it comes to prioritization.
So my personal favorite is the Moscow method. One, because it's my personal favorite, obviously, and second, because the words are very simple and easy to understand. Everyone can align with these words easily, whether there is someone from operations or whether it's someone from marketing, or there's an incident manager, or it's our product managers whom I usually work with. So the Moscow method definitely has helped me over a period of time. And with my experience of around 10 or 12 years in this space, I combine each of the acronyms like must, should, could, and won't. I combine each of these with 5 whys. So when there are multiple stakeholders and nobody is coming on one page, my first thing is to gather them in one room if possible, which is fairly possible these days, thanks to all the technology. And then when we are not seeing eye to eye on a must, it's a must, I ask 5 whys each time. So in my personal experience, when I combined these two, I reach the end goal more efficiently. It's not always a happy room all the time, but it's a much calmer room that we leave when I combine these two. So this has helped me achieve a lot of success in the various projects that I have worked on.
And that makes a load of sense, because rather than just prioritize those like, I guess, symptomatic issues, or what people are asking for at high level, actually understanding what the root causes are in a bit more detail.
Yeah.
I mean, guess in some cases that might mean actually multiple requirements are covered in one, because maybe the same root cause relates to both. But also you're very clear on what it is that's being asked and the value of it. And then you can apply that Moscow or must have, should have, could have, or won't have prioritization to those root causes and requirements. So yeah, brilliant stance, Sneha, for that. Thank you. Ashwani, what would be your perspective on that?
So like I totally second this thought, right? When like for all the MVP discussions, this is the go-to like framework for us. Like we'll utilize this. But apart from this, one more framework that comes to my mind is that is value versus effort matrix. In this, what we simply try finding it out is if the value is high and if low effort is needed, right? So those are the quick wins for us. So throughout the year, obviously we need to pull up very like automation kind of thing in whichsoever thing which we are working, right? So small things that we do like have a larger impact at end of the year. So that is one case. Then the high value and high effort, which translates into projects. So suppose if a workflow needs to be introduced, which might take 5 to 6 months or 8 months. So a kind of project is what will be defined for it. And this would also help us to like stay away from low value and high effort stuff, which are like in the waste category, right? So this is one of the thing that I personally use and like have benefited a lot by using this.
And that, I mean, that's an excellent technique as well, because it allows, I guess, once we've got those big effort or high effort, high value items that inherently of some working on and the team will work on for a while. If you've also got those high value, low effort items as well, it means we can sort of add value as we progress through that as well. So yeah, really, really excellent technique there, Ashwani. Thank you. Shane, what will be your view?
I want to share a couple of things. The one and let me see if I can share my screen again. This comes from the late Dave Husband. It's Dude's Law. And yeah, Dave was the dude who came up with this. And it's such a simple yet incredibly powerful view. Value equals Y divided by how. Now, the challenge, of course, is putting numbers around the why and the how. The why, now, is that return? Is that monetary? Is it societal benefit? Is it outcome for the organization? And the how is going to be the cost of doing this thing. And if we can look at, and we can again look at it at whatever level of granularity we like, whether it's a single user story in a backlog for a single product or multiple products comparing against each other. But Dave was an amazing guy who really distilled a lot of big ideas into simple things. In the book, we do talk about a refinement technique, and let me, which was very much inspired by Dave's work there. In 4 questions: how valuable is this rock? How big is the rock? And from that, we figure out how is it worth it? And then how ready is it? How close is this thing to being able to be delivered? Do we have to do a lot more work? But even though we've got to do a lot more work, we can see it's big, it's valuable, but it has to be refined down. Or is this a very, very clear, distinct capability feature that we can see the value, we can see the size, we can estimate it effectively, whether we're using whatever estimation technique we're using, we can then make that decision, is it worth it? And that gives us a prioritization compared to other things. And hey, we know enough about this, we could start work on it tomorrow. So I'd lean into the Dude's Law and the 4 questions here.
Thanks, Shane. That illustrated actually a number of points that Sneha and Ashwani also made as well. So it's quite a good image to reflect at the point it was as well, showing those different things that were mentioned. It also makes me think as well about one other technique that I sometimes use, which is, like investment appraisal, business case as well. So if we think about almost every requirement or every ask in a similar way, we might think about a project and think about what's the value of it, what's the actual benefit, whether in whatever way we look at that, and the benefit period and the effort to achieve that benefit. That can help us figure out a more, I guess, data-driven prioritization approach as well. So it makes me think about that. And possibly one other I might add as well. He's really just thinking about sometimes the cost of delay, so prioritising items that will lose the most value, as it were, if we delay them, as it were. So maybe something around like customer experience, customer reputation, like thoughts about the reputation of the organisation. If they're having a bad experience in any way at the moment, the longer you take to resolve that, it's only going to continue to erode not only their experience, but probably they'll start to pass that message on to other customers as well. Once again, the 3 of you have mostly covered virtually all the things that we should be talking about for that. So thank you. I wonder, Ashwani, is there any tools specifically or visual aids that you might use to support your prioritization conversations?
Sure. So like one of the tools that I used like in one of the organizations was named Miro, right? So Miro is basically a collaboration tool whereby like if you are a small team or maybe a scattered team who can utilize that platform, and then this Moscow stuff that we already discussed, right? So they could help give input utilizing that tool. Apart from that, even if you use like Kanban boards or this Scrum thing, right? So there also, whatever comes at the top of your to-do list or work in progress part, so that is what gets more priority. So from that angle, I'll also like name these Kanban boards, and then Excel at the last, right? Even if it is a bit dated, we still rely on it, whereby we could give on like a score while building some feature, right? Basis like what is the complexity of that feature that needs to be developed. We could give the scoring. The dev team could give the score, and accordingly, the product owner could decide further. So these are the basic tools which are getting leveraged by me.
It's a fair point made as well about Excel, because it really could be, if there's not a load of requirements or a load of items to prioritize, putting those things that we want in order of priority or relative merit, whether that's in Excel or a Kanban board, is another excellent way for individuals to, development team as an example, or the analyst team to pick up what is next. It's always good, though, I would say, to have a bit of data against those to show not just the order that maybe I might have put things in, but also to explain why I've ordered them in that way. It means we're a bit more open to challenge at the very least. Excellent start. Thank you, Ashwani. Shane, are there any visual aids or tools that you use?
The rolling roadmap, just the continuous flow adapting, responding. Kanban boards, absolutely. Those are the two most that I would use very visually, and then of course you're gonna back them up by whether it's a backlog in Jira tickets. Just because you use Jira does not make you agile. But Jira those types of tracking tools can be useful. Really important again to make sure that the rationale for prioritization is included, so that when the rationale changes, when the context changes, we can recognize and shift things up and down in that backlog. And yeah, simple for me. Oft times I'm the tool of recording is a simple spreadsheet. The visual elements does somewhat depend on, is the team physically able to get together? Ashwani made the point of Miro, really useful for a distributed team. But I can, if we're together in person, I can do the same with post-it notes on a flip chart on a wall.
Yeah, absolutely. So, brilliant. And Sneha?
Since Ashwani and Shane, they have mentioned what works for like teams, I'll cover another perspective. When it becomes a situation that features or high level work needs to be prioritized or planned throughout, I have seen tools within Jira which produces roadmaps. There are another set of tools called AHA. They produce good roadmaps as well, but the essence is, as Shane and Ashwini they both mentioned, the essence lies more in the context and the reasoning behind, which can always live in an Excel or post-it notes if the team can gather around. But of late, these tools are becoming efficient day and by day, so there's a lot of customization and structure that you can put into and record those contexts, be it in terms of a scorecard or business context or reasoning around. In terms of visual, these tools have really seen them growing, and they are just getting better day by day.
Yeah, I would agree. And actually, building on what you just said there, I mean, I think if we start to adopt tools for various elements of our analysis, we can start to apply some data-driven concepts to really get a view of actually what are the priorities, and that might be drivers around customer experience. It might be regulatory issues. It might be importance for other reasons as well. Maybe certain issues are causing defects or user causing losses, as an example. But whatever they may be, I think having that data-driven approach and having it in systems can really help. It can certainly try and take away maybe some of the emotional prioritization that can sometimes happen. One person shouting slightly louder than the other as well, which is definitely not a good situation to be in. I'll also pick up on something that Shane also said, because it's not really a tool or a visual aid as such, but it certainly relates to it. I think when Shane was mentioning the rationale, and I think for me, having that rationale is really important in trying to visualize not just the ask and the requirement, but actually why people perceive that they need this particular feature or requirement, or they need a defect resolved. Bringing that to life in different ways is really useful to help focus the mind on what we should be doing as well. So I think that can all help. I think as well, another concept that's quite related actually to the boards and the backlog items that you mentioned as well. I think just for BAs is just try and be proactive and keep the work you're doing transparent, so that actually if there is more work to be added to the team, your managers or people providing inputs or priorities, they can get a view of already what's on your plate and what you're already working on. And maybe they can then take a view as to whether the items they're about to give you are more or less important than the things you're working on already. And I think if you're not transparent, it's very difficult for them to do that without asking you, which of course is detracting from some of your analysis work. But a good Kanban board or a good or similar in Jira or backlog definitely help that. Brilliant. I wonder, going back to you, Shane, are there any situations where stakeholders have conflicting priorities or when everything is a priority that you've encountered?
That's every day. That is the reality, because for every stakeholder, their need is the most important. And you have to, one, you've got to absolutely acknowledge that. And then we've got to tackle, because one of the things that we need to help our stakeholders understand is that we simply can't break the laws of physics. There is a limited capacity to deliver. In any organization, we will have the team or teams will have a limited capacity to deliver, and there is bound to be a whole lot more than what we're able to deliver in the ideas that people want. So now we have to, and we're forcing prioritization, because if we don't, then we're deferring the prioritization decision to people further down the line. So what effectively happens, if everything is critical, then most likely the developer who is working on the piece will decide which is the next piece.
Yeah.
And then you get that developer's perception of priority because they're not given any other guidance. So tools like Luke Holman's Buy a Feature game, really powerful to bring stakeholders together and have them, you give them monopoly money and you say, here are the 20 features, you've each got $1,000, and where are you going to spend them? And one person could choose to put their 1,000 on one feature. The other 9 could spend $100 on each feature. And then you literally add it up and say, okay, which feature got the most pseudo dollars? And that's your highest priority. That's one way of because you need to engage these stakeholders. You're not doing it to them, you need to do it with them.
Yeah.
Because they're human beings, they also understand that, yes, there is a limited capacity. So when we show that empathy that we do understand and care and bring them on the journey with us, then you do get better prioritization outcomes. And you might still have, sadly, in some organizations, the hippo, the highest paid person's opinion, which will override everyone else. And sometimes that is just a reality you have to live with.
I definitely like the buy a feature game as a new way of making it a bit more interesting for people to come together and pit their wits against what they see as or putting themselves forward as what they see most important. Putting your money where your mouth is, almost in a
Luke
game.
Holman's innovation games is where that comes from. It's great stuff.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing it. It proves the point that I always, when I come on these sessions, there's always something I learn. And that was definitely one of them that I've not heard before. Sneha, what would be your view on conflicting priorities and how to handle those situations for stakeholders?
In my personal experience, I have been using metrics to bring people together. And as Shane mentioned, sometimes it's the opinion of the highest order ranking person that this needs to be done. And that's where conflicts happen and things need to be prioritized. If multiple Scrum teams are involved, then I think the resource part gets away and you have more capacity to play hands. But one of the aspects that I'm exploring, that one of the stakeholders challenged me, was think out of the box. Is there a low-hanging fruit that you can deliver us so that my promise can be fulfilled? Or can things be automated in certain aspect? And now we live in this age of AI. So can an AI agent perform this? How can it speed up the team? So all those angles have made prioritization more exciting and challenging, and the use of metrics, be it a very simpler one, that how many payments or how many transactions we are aiming or we are projected to handle while this, so that you can prioritize is performance technical feature is actually a technical depth, or it's a must. Yeah. So
And I think
that's
that
my
way
knowledge
you've
on.
described as well, I mean, going a metric, data-driven approach as well, it can hopefully even where there are situations of that hippo, as Shane recognised, that when the data's in front of them, if they're a top candidate for something to work on, the data disproves that that's the most important thing. It takes a fairly thick skin, I think, to try and go against the data, or at least even if they are, well, okay, they've made a decision against what the data is suggesting as well. So yeah, some excellent points there.
Yeah, and another thing that it helps is, as Shane mentioned as well, you're doing it with them and not for them. So it helps them focus their, I think, stress and emotions, all that, into an evidence-based decision. And then it's easy to reflect back and say, okay, we decided that because we thought we'll be processing trillion of payments or trillion transactions. That never happened. So let's prioritize again. Yeah. So helps a BA remind people, why did we do?
I think so. And Ashwani, what's your view?
Sure. So, like Shane put it like very nicely, all the like incremental stages in such a scenario, right? Like we check any organization, the biggest challenge that everyone faces is the resource constraint, right? So that reality check always needs to be given upfront, right? It should not be vague, very transparent, and the discussion should be starting with that part. Then obviously the forced ranking comes into the picture, whereby if they are not agreeing, ask them only to cull down their requirements to like the key ones that they have, that they want to prioritize. As Sneha was saying, right, be a facilitator, not a decision maker. So let them take the decision what their two key priority things are, and then we can apply the other approach on those prioritized items. Then we could have like say trade-off discussions and things like that. Now just coming to the last part where Hippo was brought in. So from my perspective, it is more of a strategic alignment. I won't call that they're just forcing out their decision. I would think that it would align with company's mission and vision. And from that perspective, it is at times it is good to take their word, right? Because it is aligning us with the strategic vision of the company.
Yeah, I mean, that's another excellent point, Ashwani. And I think it allows the BA to maybe not put themselves in a particularly conflicting position themselves. I mean, if they're asking the questions of, what's in the best interest of the organisation, rather than what are your priorities, that can definitely help, because fundamentally, whoever we're asking, they should be answering on behalf of the organisation, trying to deliver what's best to the organisation rather to themselves as well. And that might also be, how well does it align to strategic aims or initiatives already, as you mentioned, or maybe is this work more aligned to other things that are part of our service design or other strategic initiatives that we've got going. So really very useful point there as well. And I think once again, I mean, you've covered more than what I would have added as well. So I'm not sure there's too much to say other than just recognizing that what you've said between you there was really, bringing together transparency, data, allowing the stakeholders you're working with to make the decisions, and then thinking about the organisation as we do that as well. And I think if you stick to those sort of lessons that the three of you have made, I'm sure people won't go too far wrong when it comes to prioritisation. Also makes me think as well, I mean, as we've answered over the last few questions, I mean, we were going to cover a question around how prioritisation can ensure things remain value-driven or avoids politics or emotionally charged situations. And I kind of feel like we've probably answered that over the last question or so as well. So perhaps we'll go on to just more general question, actually, if we may. And Sneha, I'll go to you first on this one. In terms of what advice you would give to BAs who are struggling to introduce structure into their own prioritisation processes?
one advice that I have self-applied based on few of my mentors' input is keep going with it. Because what often brings us down is people not turning up in meetings. One has to understand that they are busy in other priority things. That's why they have turned down or declined your invites. The first time in a group of 15, 10 people turned down my invite, I felt so low for I think for a week or so. So you have to understand that you're entering a very challenging and, let's put it simply, a difficult task. So you have to approach it that way. Have empathy for the people whom you expect to join your calls. And if they are still busy, they cannot make time, start catching up with them offline and send them like structured questions or templates to fill in so that they can send in their inputs offline to you. And just keep your forums small, because I have often seen my efforts go into vain if I'm trying to capture attention of 15 people at the same time who are distributed all around the world among all the profiles. When the sales is on, the marketing is off, and when the project manager is on, the development lead is off in Ibiza. Yeah, so that would happen. If you think it of as a yeah, don't never consider this as a best case will happen scenario. Always plan for the worst case, and somehow along the line, if you keep your efforts consistent, even if no one turns up, a single person turns up, keep these meeting occurrences happening. And send meeting minutes afterwards. And nowadays we have all the best tools so that you don't have to spend like hours, concising everything and creating a meeting note. Just keep doing it, and people will see the value in long term. It's not a short term or a low hanging fruit that you can catch on and just wow everyone. So if you go with that mindset, you'll find the strength and the light, and the rock crusher will help you some way along the line. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned quite a few things there. I won't read all of them, but I think being adaptive whilst being consistent in your approach and showing empathy amongst all the other things you mentioned, I think are really key, not just in prioritization, but in general. But I think as you're introducing yourself to stakeholders as well, find out how they're able to be available for these prioritization sessions, how they might want to feed into them, what works best for them. And then maybe in those situations, you won't reach a point where you're sending an invite and half the people are not attending, because you'll already know that some are not going to, but they're going to provide their inputs in slightly different ways, with that questionnaire, an email, whatever it might be. So excellent start. Thank you. Ashwani, what advice would you give to BAs?
First advice would be like just start small and like simple, right? Don't be overwhelmed with all those like fancy templates that we have, and so just keep it simple. Communication is the key. Keep educating your stakeholders, because stakeholders might not have a like a entire Hawkeye view, right? Which you might be having it. So just to have that interest going on these stakeholders, just keep communicating, not just on the project. Maintain that relationship with your stakeholders throughout the project. Then leverage AI heavily, right? Now, like obviously companies are already doing it, but for all the documentation purpose, that is what I intend to say. Initially, many kind of documentation needed to be prepared. Now you have like say a handy AI tool which could do it for you. So leverage it accordingly. And the final would be use visuals which were like good earlier. It will remain to be good in the coming days also, and be a good facilitator, right? That is the key because if you are a good facilitator, you would be listening out them, you would be communicating well, and you would be doing all these steps that have been mentioned.
Yeah, and I think as well as the other good points made as well, I think that point around AI and makes me think about Gen AI as well within that. And I think using tools like ChatGPT and similar means that you can provide the data and actually rely on some of those tools to crunch that data together and propose what might be the higher priority items to come from it and why. Now, obviously, we also need to make sure that what it's given us is accurate, but at least it can help do some of the heavy lifting that we might have had to do previously. Yeah. And Shane, just to finish with yourself, if we may, in terms of your advice.
I'm going to lean into Chapter 9 of the Business Analysis body of knowledge, the underlying competencies. I've got that. There we go. The human skills, which, so when we put together the BABOK, there's 50 techniques in the technique section, and they go deep. But the thing that makes us succeed or fail is these things. The underlying competencies that are truly the human skills of, I'm trying to get to the right screen again so I can look at them. The analytical thinking, problem solving, the interaction skill, facilitation and leadership. Ashwani mentioned the facilitation skill, the perseverance, the behavioral characteristics around ethics, their personal accountability, the communication skills, both verbal, non-verbal, the business acumen that you bring. We do have to understand our organization's business domain, and up on the top left there, the tools and techniques. And today I would add to not just the business analysis tools and office productivity tools and communication tools, I would add the generative AI tools as being a really important skill set to build. But lean into the human skills. We bring people along with us, not by power, but by influence as business analysis professionals.
Yeah. And
to do that, we start with empathy. Meet people where they're at.
That's it. It feels like an excellent place to end, actually, Shane, or almost anyway. I think I say almost on the basis that brought together many of the things that Sneha and Ashwani also said. I think for me, you've all hit the nail on the head again. I'm going to waffle and repeat what you're saying as well. I think it's really important to show that empathy, show that transparency, and try and let the data do the talking rather than your emotions or the stakeholders as well. But a really nice slide to end on. I think all that's left then, therefore, is to just thank the three of you for your time and for sharing your insights on what is absolutely an important technique that covers all aspects of analysis and beyond as well. And obviously, it's one of those techniques that we can also apply to our own lives outside of our day job as well. So always useful in that sense. So with that in mind, just a final thank you. I definitely look forward to speaking to you soon or hearing from you soon as part of the wider BA community, or indeed maybe a BAInsights session in the future as well. But thank you, everybody.